Hello family, welcome to The Wealth Cycle, where we discuss all things related to building a financial legacy. I'm often asked, how do I qualify for a loan? And can I really buy a home? Well, the answer is yes, but it requires a disciplined process. When I became a pastor at this church, I wanted to live in the city that I was a pastor at. So I moved to Inglewood, and one of the things is I bought a home right away. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to pay the home off, but I also wanted to do it with other members of the church. So I started something called Buy Inglewood. I wanted people to start learning how to buy a home and then pay it off, but also have the home increase in value. And several people did it. So I walk people through the process, which is first, understanding what your income is. And then second is understanding your credit and walking through what your credit is. And then your expenses, what's going on with your expenses. And then your debt. And then your investments. And we go through the process. Qualifying for a home means that you're putting your financial house in order. The first thing we have to look at is your income. How did your income come in? Are you an entrepreneur? Do you have a business? Also, the way your income comes in. In other words, is it W-2 or do you own your own business? The second thing that we look at is your credit. There are 3 credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. We want to make sure your credit is in order, making sure we're paying people on time and that also we're lowering our debt that we have on there. Next is your expenses. What is your monthly budget? And then what expenses do you have? And then we want to reduce your debt. We teach classes, as you know, it's called Do Good. Get out of debt. We want your debt to be low so that you can save more from your income. So you have your debt and you have your income. We want to make sure we can widen that margin so that you can afford more home and be able to live comfortably. Next is your assets. So if we look at how we're going to manage your finances, you have what's called your budget, and then you have your debt, and then you have what's called prosperity dollars. That's how you build wealth. So that means money that you have in your checking, savings, and then also investment accounts, and then also your retirement account. So we want to build our assets. So how we do that is we look at what our budget is, and then we reduce our debt, and then we build our assets. We want to add the home to our assets. So in other words, we want to build your financial house before we work on getting your home. Next step, I'm already getting excited, is you got to find the right location. So there may be some sacrifice that you need to make to get the home that you want. One is you might have to drive a little bit further. Second is, how close is your home to desirable locations? In other words, is it close to an airport? See, we're here in Inglewood. Is it close to a stadium? Is it near a good school district? Is it near major freeways? In other words, we want to start looking for homes that you can also look at that later on that they increase in value, so if you move to another home, that you have a house that you can rent out or you can sell at a higher value. And then third, we have to look at what type of home you have. I'll let you know I'm a little biased. I want to buy the ugliest house in the best neighborhood and then make it beautiful. And there's a process for that. Also, I may look for a little smaller home, but if it has a big lot, I can add on to it and increase what? The value. See, we want to show you how you can do it and model it. I had the opportunity one time to watch Wayne Gretzky speak. And when I met him, actually the first time, I said, he's not actually the biggest guy that I'd seen. And then he got up and he was speaking, he said, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the fastest. He said, but how I made my living was, I didn't skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going. And that really stuck with me because so many times people are looking at your current situation and you're saying, I don't see how I can do this. But when you have faith and then you follow the process, because God has a plan for you. As it says in Jeremiah 29:11, he has a plan and a purpose for you, plans of hope and a future. So they have to do the process and then walk to where your goals are and then keep going through the process. I brought some friends along with me today, and what we're going to do is have a conversation about how they achieved home ownership and then show you and model how you're going to have home ownership. And this will help not only you, but your family. There's a term, it's called generational wealth. A generation is 20 years. And what happens with generational wealth is two things have to pass. The first is the finances. So we're getting the financial house in order. The second is the knowledge. Knowledge has to pass. So we want to give you the knowledge, and then I'm going to add a word to it, wisdom, so that not only you achieve your goals, but your family does generationally. And for us to do that, we need to be ready and then get set and then to grow. Hey family, give me a high five. I bet you there's 5 people that you can think of that you can share this with. We want to make it easy for you to ask a question. Just put it right there in the chat. We may not be able to answer all the questions, but we'll do our very best. So here at the table with us, we have Krista. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good, good, good. We also have Diedrich. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Good, good. So we're going to have this. And then also we have a very special installment today is that everybody, I have my twin sister, Jennifer, with us today.
Hi, everybody.
Good, good, good. So, hey, we're going to be talking about areas of real estate. And you know what I hear people saying, I want to get a home. And we want to make sure we go through the process and understand the journey and how we're doing it. So I'm going to start right off with you, Krista, and everything like this.
All right.
So you bought a house, right? So can you tell us just a little bit about how you became a homeowner, like just the process, like kind of how you started and then just kind of how you went through it?
Yeah, I would say that it was a journey. I started in 2017, actually, working with a realtor, and that house process, it didn't really yield into a house.
Right.
And so I decided a couple of things. I needed to save more money, and I had to get ready. I didn't feel like I was really ready to be a homeowner in terms of the amount of funds I needed to have in the bank. And so I waited and saved. And so it ended up being about 3 years later that I restarted the hunt.
Right. So I just want to show you techniques, and we're going through this. So one thing is you had to save up, because a lot of people say, I want to do this, so you have to have a savings. Also, you're a business owner. So were there any hurdles that you had as far as a business owner, as far as qualifying and things like that?
Yeah. So as a business owner, this is the thing that I learned in 2017. So when you're not a business owner, you have W-2s. You can prove your income. When you are a business owner, there are proof of income that you have to have. So I had income, I had proof of it, but the way you document it was different. So by 2020, when I started my home hunt, I just had more documentation. I had more money in the bank. My credit was even better than it was in 2017. And so I just felt more fortified, more confident, and more competitive in my home hunt when I started.
Right. I'm going to go back into, because you chronicled, one of the reasons why here is you chronicleize this also on social media, so all the difficulties.
Yeah.
But the 2 things that we learned from you already is that number 1 is it just may not start off that you get a house, but then you come through, and now you've lived there for how long now?
13 months.
So it has been, okay, about a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you done with everything, or is everything
No,
already?
my dad says you're never done.
Okay, gotcha. There's always a process with it. Yeah. And then we got out the blocks. You just got a home. We found out that you had one. You moved in how many weeks ago?
About 2, actually.
2 weeks ago.
It's not
So
been that long.
one of the things is I want to ask you about purchasing a home and also being married with children. It's a little bit different looking for homes and the process and everything.
It is.
So in doing that, how did you prep your whole family, or how did you kind of prep family and get your finance in order so you were able to purchase a home?
Yeah, so we kind of like Krista, our journey really started several years ago before we actually had kids. So we were kind of looking at different homes, different areas of LA. Being an entrepreneur myself, understanding like you have to chronicle that income differently. So we had some challenges where we had to also wait a few years, and then we wound up having kids. So the process in terms of what we needed and what we wanted wound up differing vastly once we had kids, because the priorities shift at that point.
Right.
So we're looking for no longer the space where it's like, okay, we're young and going out and having fun, so we need a space for the kids, we need a yard, we need to make sure that the school district is good. We're looking at all those different things. So that all shifted once we had kids. The mindset shifted in terms of what we needed versus what we wanted.
So we're talking about mindset shift with everybody. So one of the things we do when you buy a home is you have to make sacrifices. I remember it was like it was yesterday. I also moved into a home about a year ago, and I'm almost done doing the renovation, because when I buy a property, it's typically in very bad condition, and I fully renovated. But I also went, and I need a little bit of help from you on this. I actually went to a property. Danette was giving me a hard time about this, and this was a beautiful property. It was in Windsor. It overlooked the entire city. Came in there, did everything, had a full rec room, everything, but no yard at all. And I wanted to have it, but I knew I couldn't with kids. So there's certain sacrifices you have to make in order to get what you want. So I want our, people that are watching this or listening to say, like, what are some sacrifices you kind of had to make? So first of all, I'm going to come back to you.
Yeah.
I also want to hit Jennifer, and then I'm going to go to you. It's like sacrifice you made, but like one of the first things I think you're going to allude to is they're going out to eat all the time, and the amount of money you need to save and different things. But what are some sacrifices you had to make in order for you to be a homeowner?
Yeah, I think I could name two.
Okay.
The first is the budget that I thought my home was going to be. So when I first started looking, this was December 2020, I said, okay, I'm looking for a townhouse, and this is my budget. I ended up in a single family home that was $180,000 more than what I thought I was going to pay.
Right.
That was a big number.
Right.
But what I had to think about it, that's 180 roughly amortized over 30 years. So monthly it wasn't that much. But again, with mindset, when I saw that number, almost $200,000, I thought, I can't afford that.
Right.
That's such a huge number. That's way more than I thought I was gonna get into buying a home.
Right.
But actually I could afford it. I was approved for well over what I actually purchased my home for. So that was one kind of sacrifice and mindset. And then the other one was location.
Right.
I loved the neighborhood I was living in.
Yes.
And I was trying to buy around that area generally, but I knew I couldn't really afford it. And I don't mean mindset. I mean, literally, I didn't have an extra $1.4 million to get into that neighborhood.
But where you rent, more than likely.
Exactly.
Everybody, if you're watching this, you're not in Los Angeles. It's very hard to live where you're renting because you're renting. You know what I mean? In that area. Yeah.
So what I did was, and luckily my background's urban planning, so I just know LA County, a map and neighborhoods in my brain. So it just meant as I was hunting, I continuously looked further south and more east than I was looking for initially. So my map kept expanding.
Right.
And so I think, that's one of the sacrifices. I knew what I wanted.
Right.
And so it just meant you had to be flexible. At first I was like, okay, definitely I'm looking at Inglewood. Then I was like, okay, Inglewood adjacent. Or maybe that means Hawthorne, Lawndale. Okay, I was outbid on like 7 properties. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm gonna go further east and south. And then where I ended up was a neighborhood where I actually had worked for 3.5 years on the actual street.
Wow.
So it was really meant to be where I ended up. I knew the neighbors and I knew the neighborhood. But I think I only found that home that was meant for me because I gave up the restrictive idea about where I had to be. Right. I had to relax the map.
Right, and so there's a couple things you learn from her. First of all, you leverage your knowledge. You said you worked in urban planning. Like sometimes if you're a school teacher, whatever area you work in, try to leverage the knowledge that you have there. Second is that you had to change we have to change our mindset when you become a real estate. You didn't spend $180,000 more. You invested $180,000 more. A condo is very nice. I own condos and I own single family homes. A single family home will appreciate in value more than a condo will. So that's how you learn that. So it's more of an investment. So she's gonna you're using all them financial terms, she's gonna amortize it out over a 30-year period. I feel better about it. I'm like, okay, but at the end of the day, she invested it. So then we're gonna reap. So you plant and then you reap, and then she's also in the community doing that. And she's making that neighborhood better. I hope. All right, I'm doing that. So next we're gonna go over sacrifices. Dietrich, and then Jen, any sacrifices that you made when you purchased a home. Dietrich?
I think I'm kind of like Chris. So the sacrifice originally was we were looking in Inglewood because we were staying in La Tierra Village at the time, so we wanted to stay within the area. During that time, our pre-approval would have kept us in the area, but then the Fed did something crazy, and they raised the Fed funds rate.
The Federal Reserve raised the interest rates in the United States of America?
So normally that doesn't really have a direct correlation with mortgage rates, but the trickle down from the economy being so uncertain caused lenders to bake in an increase in interest rates. So our rate at the time would have been somewhere around 4.15. By the time it was all said and done, APR-wise, it was like 5.875.
Right.
And so that pushed our purchasing power obviously down. So we started looking in outer communities. And we were sitting on a Zoom call one day. We were actually thinking about like Carson, Gardena, Compton, sitting on a Zoom call one day. And lo and behold, Danette says something about, think about the city of Compton. And then you came and said, hey, Dietrich, remember, skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it's been. And so we started looking at Compton and driving around, looking at different developments. We found a nice property out there. And at first it was kind of like, Compton has the stigma. I don't know. But I was like, let's keep an open mind about this. This can give us an opportunity to get our foot in the game. And then once we build up that equity, we can either sell or lease and then cash out, refi, and then go buy where we want to be
Right.
at.
Gotcha. So you guys, obviously he went very fast. When he went over interest rates rising, that means there's less competitors in the market. That means we're skating to where the puck is that we're always buying, we're always looking. That you did, let me tell you some things you did, I think, Dietrich, that were very good. You kept looking. You stayed in the fight, and then you also take advice. I feel like I've been saying, buy Inglewood, buy Inglewood. I've been saying it for like 10 years when everybody's doing it. Now I'm like, buy anything. No, buy anything. but play your strengths. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay, everybody says, well, Compton, but I just want to tell you something. Like, you're off of the one, you don't have to give it your exact house, but you're off of, there's a 110 freeway, there's a 105, there's freeways around 91. You. There's a way that, so you're doing that because you understand that before we go to Jen, is one of the things that we want to look at that. Whenever I'm buying a home, one of the first things I'm doing is, how am I going to rent this house right now or sell it for double the value? If I invest $1, I expect to make back, I used to say 3, now I'm kind of in the 2 range, but in doing it, so I expect to make that back.
Right.
Like in doing it. So one of the things, Jen, I want to ask you now a little bit about sacrifice you made when you bought your first property or when you bought your second property.
The second property that I purchased, I actually got one that was a rundown building, older building that needed a lot of love, and it needed the community is a small boutique condominium association. There's 32 units in it, and just needed to get on the board and get everybody together and start pulling the property up. Gotcha. So it's in a great location. It's just an old building.
Gotcha. But you see what she just said, and then that's lessons we always want to cover at the table and everything is this. So she bought a building, and then you guys, and Jennifer, it's okay to say it. I always say buy the ugliest house. I'm gonna go into that in a minute, but in doing it. But so she bought some of those run down. So then I'm gonna use the word undervalued because it's the same thing you use when you're buying stock. So here's the value of the home. It's undervalued. Then they have a horrible HOA. Now, you know what I mean? Like, so now we're looking at this. Look at all the properties that have horrible HOAs and different things. Then what did she do? She joined the HOA. Then she's going to tell you later on how she became president of the HOA. And then how she fixed everything up. Then people sent in proposals. They sent in pieces of paper to her that said it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she said, you know what? Then she called other people and found out how to get it much cheaper, got it fixed, and then what did it do? It raised the value. So she's starting to move towards that $2. So you start to move to get things going and doing that. So here, let me ask you a question. What advice would you give to someone if they're starting out and they're saying they either don't own a home, and then since she already said she owned her second property, because this family, then I'm gonna let you guys ask me a question of a question if you guys want to, and I'll give her the option and two about investing. But what advice would you give to someone if they're starting off right now and then before Dietrich, he's gonna give these complicated answers. Before Dietrich knows this, we have an inflationary environment. So he's all these financial stuff. We live in a higher interest rate, and there's also wars and rumors of wars going around. What advice would you give to somebody that was starting out, looking for their first property, and then I'm going to go back to they're getting their second property?
Yeah, I would say it really does come down to the numbers. And this is something that I didn't know even in my second go of buying a home, right? 2017, 2020. When you look at, say, like a Redfin or, you know, the real estate sites, and you see the home that you're looking at and it says the price, that price on the home, $500,000 or whatever the price, that's not all that you have to come up with, right? That price plus the closing costs. And I remember even in this last go around, you know, I knew that there was, you know, they were like, okay, and just budget around like 6% or so for the closing costs. It was just random. And I'm such a precise person. I wanted to know what is it? Because I didn't know that I have it in the bank.
Right.
I need to know the money. And so I just said, you know what? Whenever I find the house, I'm going to put an offer in so that I don't ever want to be at that last day of escrow and find out I don't have the money to close and I default and I lose the deposit and all the things. Yeah. I just want to have 15%, 10 to 15% in the bank so I can cover whatever closing costs and then all the repairs and extra stuff on top of it. I don't want to just be financially free when it comes to the house. So that's the advice I would give.
Right.
When you make your budget, know your numbers, the cost of the home, that includes like the down payment you need to have, and also your closing costs. And then you're going to have, you know, your inspections costs. So guess what? When you buy a home, and now you're in that 30-day or whatever your escrow window is, and you got to say, is this foundation good? Are there termites in this house? How's this roof? You got to pay people to come to that house and look. So depending on how many inspections you get, and by the way, in my price range, that meant homes that were 80 to 100 years old. Yeah. So that meant I got like 4 or so inspections. That was maybe 1,500 out the gate before I even owned the house.
Right.
So it's just, you're putting money out before you own a home. So it really is make a budget and save.
Right.
It's savings, it's credit, and it's time.
Right. So I'm going to go back to that, but I got other things. But back to that inspection thing is when we do inspections, they're like, what, $400 to $600, right? Depending, they're $400 for the home. Then if you buy units, they're $600, maybe $800, different things like that. That is not an expense. That is an investment. I use the appraisal. The inspection as my negotiating tool.
Exactly.
I'm like, this roof is already here. Listen, I need you to take off. And then I use an ungodly number. And then they'll tell me, we can't send them to take off $50,000. This already. You know what I mean? I said, but just send it over. You know, that's your tool to learn out. That's how you find out. That's like going to the doctor and getting a checkup. But then also the other point you said was know your numbers and everything like that.
Yeah.
That is very, very important. Okay? Deidre?
So I would say for anybody who's out there looking to purchase that first home is the biggest thing that I can tell you, and this is coming from me as a real estate agent, is just don't give up. Right. The process may take a little bit longer than most people, think because they hear the stories, well, I close in 30 days, I close in 45 days. That's the closing. That's not the time it took them to actually find the house and go through, getting their credit ready and saving up money. And I think that's where a lot of people get discouraged at, because that's a lot of what I see from my clientele is they get discouraged when they see prices going up and interest rates going up and they figure it's totally taking me out the market.
Right.
But don't give up and just stay having an open mind, because you may not get into the area that that you want to get into at first, but as long as you can get your foot into the game, that creates leverage. So now you have opportunities down the line when your property appreciates to go into those areas that you desire. And you may never, you might find out a place that you didn't desire. When you get there, you absolutely love it. So I would say just keep an open mind. The biggest thing that I tell my clients all the time, fall in love with the neighborhood, not necessarily the house. You can change the house over time. You cannot change the neighborhood. So, as an agent, I can't physically pick that house up and put it in a great neighborhood, but you can take a trashy house in a really good neighborhood, force the equity in it by fixing it up, and now you've increased your wealth by, exponentially at that point.
But what about doing that as far as doing that with going in there with your wife?
Oh my gosh.
And then mortgages and things like that.
No, this is where it really got interesting at, because she's walking into it like, we can fix the house up and do all this stuff, and I'm coming from the analytical standpoint of, okay, know the numbers. how much is it going to cost to fix this stuff up? Because what you're looking at right now is purely aesthetic stuff. What I'm thinking about is, what does the foundation look like? What does the roof look like? What does the plumbing look like in the house? Is the electrical up to date? Those are going to be the big ticket items. Because once you get the house spruced up and it looks all great, if you don't have the electricity or the plumbing to serve that house properly, now you have additional problems. That money just went down the drain. So now what you invested has not become an investment. It's become a money pit. And so those were things that I had to kind of walk her through. Like, when you see this, I see that.
Right.
And so it took a little bit of time for us to get kind of on the same page, just in terms of what we're looking at and how much it was going to cost, because I'm an analytic. So I'm running the numbers and I'm looking at, okay, fixing it up, but then the major repairs, what's it going to cost? And so I would go back and say, here's what I estimated would cost us to do. And then she'd come back and go like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So it took a little bit of time for us to get on the same page, but I think it's because of what I do as a profession. She trusted me a little bit more in terms of like, okay, I'm going to trust you know what you're doing because I've seen you do it before. So I'll take your advice and we'll do it this way.
Jennifer, whenever I call, I'd be like, hey, Jen, man, hey, what you doing? It's like, man, I'm doing something. just give us a small glimpse of some. I'm rubbing my hands while she's talking. Go, tell us a small glimpse of some of the stuff you do when you renovate your place. How much you contract, how you work with a contractor, how much you do yourself, or to walk us through the last one, and then let me chime in during when you started painting part. Doesn't pay nobody because I need you to do that for me. But anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Basically, in a nutshell, whatever I could do, like you guys, I just tried to do it.
Yeah.
And I would Google it, YouTube it. My walls, the place I moved into, the walls were just looking really rough. I thought, I'd love it if these walls were sanded. I love it because if I'm going to move in here, I got to put everything into it. I can't go back later after your furniture's in there and everything else. So I went through and I actually sanded the walls and primed the walls and anyway, changed toilet flappers, like stuff I would have never thought I would have ever done before. In a nutshell.
That's one of the keys that you have to look at is decide what you're going to do, and you stick to that, and then you hire out everything else, but get the right people. Because if they know what they're doing, they should be able to do it quicker and in those areas. And then if you get good, and then this is also another thing is, what I found out through time is when you find a really good person, ask them who can do the other things.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like if you're here laying the floors and saying, hey man, do you do the ceiling such and such or doing that? And then that area, and then do this. And then how you really end up good is back to the ABCD. The couple of areas that you can do, if you can get everybody to work together and finish and then get all of your things, that's actually how you do it. Good. Any other things so we want to make sure, and you guys have anything else, Jen, that you would make sure that if you wish you would have known earlier, that you knew now that you'd like to share to help people that are getting their second home or their first?
I would just echo what we've already said is just don't give up. Many people think they can't do it and they can't have a home. Yes, you can have a home. You just have to maybe give up something or figure out how you can get it. But yes, you can have a home. Everybody can have a home, but you have to believe that and stay on it.
Right. Anything else?
I would say something that Jen touched on earlier. For those of people who are looking to move into communities that have an HOA, I tell my clients, get on the board. If anything, at least attend the board meetings, because what you don't want to have happen is you just kind of let it go, and all of a sudden you get a notice in the mail saying, hey, there's a $10,000 assessment because we need new plumbing or a new roof. And you go, well, I didn't vote on that. Well, guess who did vote on it?
Right.
The people
The
that showed
board,
up.
the people that showed up. You didn't have a voice because you didn't come. So it can be time consuming, I know it, but what would you rather have? A couple of hours every month or a $10,000 bill that you have to pay out over the course of 5 years?
Right.
So get on the board if you're doing an HOA community. Bare minimum, just attend the meetings.
Yep.
Right. And she learned that too. And then also if everybody becomes active, there's a lot less work everybody has to do.
Exactly.
10 people, 10 hours, then 30 people, she's saying hers, that's like 1 hour, and then doing it and getting advocates and working together. And you've advocated for properties. Anything else that you would want to share with someone that you wish you'd like to share with them that you know now that you wish you had known earlier?
I would say make the list of, I think, and I fell into this as well. Like I want a house. And I even told you, but I don't think I can do it. You said, just try.
Okay.
It was literally October of 2020. I was like, I'm just going to rent a place that has a backyard because that's really what I want. I don't think I can buy. And then look at me now, I'm in my house.
Right.
But I would say what would be really important is make a list of what you want and the why. Because I think when it gets hard, when you feel like you can't do it, coming back to that, it becomes that fuel to keep it going. It was a pandemic. I had an apartment, no patio,
Right.
I had no outdoor space, and I just kept saying, I just want to be in a garden and be able to be outside.
Right.
And when my escrow went from 21 days to 100, when I got outbid on 8 properties by
right.
cash offers,
Okay.
all these things, I was like, forget it. I just was like, I want to be outside in the garden. And that actually helped fuel to get through, honestly. So
Right.
that was the thing I wish I would have known, one, that just something just to focus on and not to get caught up in the hard stuff. Because it isn't easy, but nothing worth having comes easy.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
Right. So
And
that's what I
enjoy
wish I knew it wasn't easy. Because sometimes you hear people, I got my house, and it just seems like it's supposed to be
Yeah,
easy.
like it happened.
Right.
And I wish somebody would have told me
and
that.
easy, and then all the 30-day escrows, just so you know, all that stuff, 30 days and 15-day escrow, the close.
Yeah.
Those are ads. Those aren't actual people that
Yeah.
are doing it.
So this is the thing I wish, what I'm saying, when you said what you wish you would know, that it does take time. That, it can happen, it will happen, and just focus on what you want.
Right.
And really just remember that this is what you're working towards.
That's an important point about the why and everything like that.
What's and whys.
Family, I want to thank you for joining us at Wealth Cycle. A couple things. First is that, number one, there's 2 clubs out there. One is called the Starters Club. Everybody's in that. I want to go to college. I want to graduate. I want to be married. I want to own a home. And then there's another club. It's called the Finishers Club. That's the people that finish at the end. So we want you to be in the Finishers Club. That's by setting goals, looking at all this great information that was shared today and that you can finish. It has been an honor to watch you guys go through the home buying process that I've watched. And it's like God has you on a channel and you're sitting on that channel. And then you're in your apartment. It's hot. It's pandemic. You got to go somewhere to get a mask and different things. And when you move into a house, God is changing your channel. Now your channel's in high definition. Amen. She wanted to get a condo. Now she has a yard and go out there and smell the flowers. It's because she went through the process and finished it. I want you guys to continue to do what you're doing, but I also want you to get in the process. Ready, set, grow. Thank you for joining us. Hey family, give me a high five. I bet you there's 5 people that you can think of that you can share this with. We want to make it easy for you to ask a question. Just put it right there in the chat. We may not be able to answer all the questions, but we'll do our very best.